how many deals have we done since then? Kind of give us the numbers.
15 closed, 3 pending right now. If I close all 3 of these deals that are pending right now, I'll be at $1 million.
What's up, guys? Brad here. Welcome to another episode of Investor Creator Apprentice Spotlight, where I have my guy Tydon. Guys, 24 years old, coming out the gate swinging. I mean, this kid is setting records like we haven't seen before in Investor Creator in this age group. 24 years old, in 10 months has bought $800,000 in equity with no real estate background whatsoever prior, and he's on track to do $1 million literally his first year of implementation of these systems. Okay, so we're going to go through the marketing channels. We're going to go through exactly how he's doing this and how he conversates with the sellers, the negotiation platform, how he's structuring these deals, where he's keeping his cash and credit on the sidelines, and really, what is it that takes someone from startup through struggle to success so quickly? Part of it's the mindset. So you guys are going to love this episode. Check it out. Here's me and Tydon. All right. Welcome. We're really excited to have Tydon on tonight. But before we get there, I want to introduce my right-hand man tonight, James Garland. James, say hello.
Hello, everybody.
All right. So we're going to be kind of going through this together. And James has been in purchasing with us for a long, long time and is one of the coaches at Investor Creator. So we're going to have a good time with this tonight. So one of the things that I think is important to go through is why do we go through these spotlights, right? So it's a couple of things. Number one, the best advice and the worst advice that I've ever received was actually from my father. And he said, you know, Brad, when things are good, they're never as good as you think. And when they're bad, they're never as bad as you think. And I found that to be half correct. That yes, it's true when things are tough, it's never really as tough as what you think they are. But I do think now that it's important to celebrate wins. And so that advice, whenever I was younger and I was really first starting to come up in the business, I remember my first deal that I had like a really, back then was like an amazing cash pop. It was a 35K profit. I bought 2 houses for $7,000 and I sold them for 42K. Okay. Actually to the neighbor. So it's a crazy story. Lady had 2 houses on one deed. I was going to split them apart, but long story short, she'd had a for sale sign in the front yard for years. Couldn't sell this property. I put them up on Craigslist owner finance. Sold it to the neighbor behind her, who had never seen the sign on the front yard, and the guy just paid cash. And so, you know, and whenever I had that closing, I came away from that closing with a $35,000 check, and I said, yeah, we did good, but it's not as good as you think because I got this advice. And what I've found instead is that it's really important to celebrate the wins, because if you don't celebrate the wins, then if you don't celebrate the wins, what are you going to celebrate? You know? And so this is in part forcing our people to celebrate the wins, because we have amazing success in what we do. I would say, frankly, unparalleled in the education space. I think that there's various reasons for that. I think it's the support that we have of 20 plus hours of live support per week, but it's also the process, you know, and there's so many people in real estate that are effectively running east looking for a sunset. And it doesn't matter how long you run or how hard you run looking east, running for that sunset. It's the process that's wrong. And so we see that a lot with people coming in, that they're doing this or doing that, they're doing this or doing that, and then they come in and they're frustrated, like, why haven't I found success? And then, I mean, we can diagnose this as like, yeah, well, no wonder, you know. But it's always fun whenever I have people that, you know, within 6-8 months, like Tydon, are able to get to my year 6, you know, because it was, guys, I was a slow start in the business. My first year, I did 3 deals. My second year, I might have done 5. You know, it was years into the business before I started transacting one time per month. And then it was another 18 months or so before I got to where I was doing multiple deals per month. You know, and then I see really people that are becoming superstars in the industry that are able to do that within 3 or 4 months. You know, and that's just so much fun to be a part of. And so I thought that this would be a good time to bring Tydon on. And also, at this time of year, a lot of people start to look at, what was this year? Was it a good year or a bad year? They start to have a lot of self-reflection. But in addition to that, they also start to kind of like lose the baggage. people start to get a little bit more vision about what next year could be. And I think that this is really a good case study on what can change in a year, because I know in part like what Tydon has done, but I'm not exactly sure what this looked like for him end of December in 2023, looking at 2024. So let me just have Tydon start with that, man. If you can, just kind of tell us a little bit of your background, and also just kind of paint the picture on what did the end of December 2023 look like for you in relation to this idea of real estate. So go ahead and hit it, man.
All
There we
right,
go.
yeah. Well, great intro. Thanks for that.
Oh,
So man, rewinding the clock. Forgot everything past that time. I just like it's history now. Don't even think
well,
about it.
it's funny, man, because to me, I look the same as when I did when I was 20, 21 years old. It's just the people that are 20 and 25 years old. James, stop shaking your head. No, that y'all just look younger. But then Tyden jumps in, and what are you, 25?
24.
24, you know? And so you have far less years than I do, to kind of look back on. But go ahead. Tell us what you're thinking.
Yeah, man, before I started Investor Creator, my life was essentially just nonstop business hustle every single day. And I'm talking like I literally graduated high school and started my first business, and that's all I did. I shut out like everything but that. Got it to the point where I was just a salesperson. So imagine one-on-one sales every single day from the time you wake up to go to sleep for 4 years straight. That was basically my life before Investor Creator. And, right before getting into the program, it was more of a feeling burnt out with what I was doing, feeling like
Mm,
I achieved a level of success and it was time to pass the baton to someone who's going to enjoy what I was doing and find a new opportunity vehicle that might have a higher opportunity if I wasn't going to go open franchises and stuff like that with my gym business. So that's kind of where I was at. I knew I needed to make a change, and it's funny because I started really just looking at. I'm like, I know there is a perfect program out there. Like I know there's one. I just kept looking, 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 and then you come along. So
well, sometimes we're just in the right place at the right time. So, you know, tell us about the gym business, and like what did you not like about that?
it was really tough to answer that question, to be honest, because there's so many things I loved about it.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's still so much value there, and I love our employees that we have now, and what they're doing is really cool. But what I didn't like about it is the fact it was so just like one to one. Like I make a sale, get income, and then we train that client, but fitness clients, like how long are they going to last with you? Like they either reach their goal and they go do it on their own, and they're great, which is great, but I don't have a client or they fall off after a little bit of time because they just can't
Mm.
stay in the program. So, um, man, yeah, it was just the hustle and not seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, not building anything long term.
Yeah, that makes sense. So within that, why real estate? Because you could have done some crypto, could have been a crypto bro, you could have grown some pot, like you could have done something different. So what was it
What do you
about?
say? I look like a crypto bro?
I don't know anything about crypto, man. I'm not the crypto guy, but you could have tried it, you know,
Right. Hopefully not the pot thing, but to each their
depending on the state.
own. Right. Man, real estate for me just looked like the highest leverage opportunity.
Yeah.
That was it. And the fact that there's not that many vehicles that can actually make passive income, it's still not easy, but real estate can do it. So,
Yeah, we'll definitely get into the passive income side of this because you've done really well with that, and I know that that's your focus, guys. For me, I got into real estate because I thought, there's certainly nothing special about me, and my grandmother and my wife would disagree, but I do think that that is true. That I have some strengths. I really like people. I enjoy teaching. There were some things that I think were good about me that maybe would have helped me in the business world, but I'd heard that real estate had created more millionaires than any other asset class. And I thought, well, I need to go into something that I have the highest chance of success because I felt like I needed to go where maybe the business was easier. And I do think that this business is easier, and I have friends of mine that work really, really hard in their business, but they're in the wrong vehicle. And if you're in the wrong vehicle, there's only so fast that vehicle can take you down the road. And so, what you're saying about the gym business that, people, it's not like big equity or cash pops in one deal and you're not creating consistent cash flow for time and you don't really have appreciation generally. Like you have all these things that, you were working and it was working for you, but it maybe wasn't the best vehicle for you long term. So all of that makes sense. So I guess, man, like if you remember, when did you join with us? Was it March?
I'm pretty sure it was March. Yeah.
March.
Third
Okay.
month, January, February, yeah, March.
Okay, cool. So March of this year, and were you like really confident coming into the business, or were you like, I don't really know, man. Like some of these real estate people seem kind of sleazy.
Honestly, I feel like I was super confident going into it. I just knew like if I had the freaking framework of like, hey, this is the steps to be successful,
Hmm.
I knew I would crush it. So like when I found this program and I saw that you had that, like I was just freaking pumped. Like you probably remember how like just excited I was when I first
I
started. I'm like,
do.
dude, this is it.
I
Like,
do. Well, I knew on the front end, I was like, this kid has a lot of energy and he's smart, so he's an unguided missile at this point. I've got to take him from an unguided missile to a guided missile, hopefully. And I'm still working on that. But so far, it's working out okay. So, were there any surprises, like getting into the training or like coming on the support calls? Was there anything that was like, oh, I really didn't think about that, or hey, this was really surprising to me?
were there any surprises? Really just the similarity to what I was doing previously. Like the fact it was just one-on-one sales, just doing it,
Hmm.
selling a different thing.
Yeah.
That was honestly super surprising to me. Like I still think about that. I'm like, this is like I thought I was getting out of sales to get into real estate, and then I realized I'm back in sales.
Oh, it's a sales and marketing business, guys. The real estate is a means to an end, but it is a sales and marketing business. So, do you think that your background in sales kind of prepared you for what we do, or did you find it that it was different enough that you really had to unlearn some things?
I think I totally had to unlearn most everything besides just the thick skin that you get from being a professional dealing with no or people, being mad at you for following up with them 1,000 times until they say stop following up with me. But as far as the actual like the process and like the frame going into the conversation,
Mhm.
completely different. So to
So,
answer your
expound on that
last
because I
question,
want to make sure I understand what you mean by that.
yeah. So
So,
you're
how's the frame different?
well, the frames. So like your last question, that was actually the most surprising thing is how different the conversation is. So with fitness training, when you're sitting down, with a new client coming in, it's very similar. And like you do the discovery, you want to learn everything about them and whatever, and kind of stack up all the information, repeat
Yep.
stuff back to them, etc. Um, Let me think. How do I explain this? The biggest difference. Here's the biggest difference. Right before you go into the pitch with fitness, it's, hey, that's really awesome. I'm so glad, XYZ, I think I might have a really good solution for you. And then I ask them, I say, do you want to hear about how our program works and how we might be able to help? So I ask them that question, right? And then they invite me to sell them versus
Hmm.
with real estate, you don't even ask. You're just like, well, so and so, let me tell you a little bit about what I do.
What we do. Yep.
And it's more of a downward and voice inflection where like it's like, do you want to hear about how our program works? And they say
Yeah.
yes, like you have to ask for permission, where in real estate it's more of like authority. Like for
Yes.
so I thought that was really interesting.
That's really funny, man, because there's a big difference in the way that we lead generate so that we really have a negative sell type of framework to what we do versus if you're out like cold calling of course, the frame is significantly different, right? So being in a situation where you're asking someone to sell you something, hey, I'm calling you up, hey, can I buy this house? Versus being in a position where people are calling you, hey, will you buy the house? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that totally makes sense to me. I do want to get, and don't let me forget about it, man, because I know that you're working with wholesalers where like they've sourced the lead first. And I guess let me back into this a little bit differently. So there are two deals that I really like to do. The first is when we have an immense, big, um, positive impact with our seller or our buyer. So those are my favorite deals. My second favorite deal, a close second, is a deal where we're paid because we know how to do something that another investor doesn't know how to do. So, it's a wholesaler that brings us a deal and they already have the lead. They've already sourced the marketing, sourced the seller, had the first conversation, but they either don't know how to deal structure something that we know how to structure, or they're in a position where they really just can't negotiate. So I know that you're doing deals just like that with a little beehive of wholesalers out in your market that are bringing you stuff, even though you kind of don't need deals right now.
I
Uh,
call them my savages.
Savages. Okay, cool. So
Savages.
I definitely want to get into that because we'll talk about lead gen here in just a moment. So from the time that you started in March, roughly how long was it before you started implementation? And we call implementation the point that you begin to lead generate. So roughly how long was that?
I don't even know exactly. Probably like a month,
Okay, cool. That
I
that
think.
that makes sense.
Because I
So
like literally like just went through the course, like didn't sleep, like nonstop.
cool. All right. So about a month there. Do you remember your first lead?
I think I closed my first lead actually.
Okay. All right. You got to tell the story, man. I didn't realize you were one of those. So
Yeah.
we've had about 20 people that come in, they implement our search marketing strategy the way that we teach it, and the first lead comes in and they buy it and they look at us like we just created the universe, you know? So walk me through that, man, because I know now that you remember this deal.
Yeah, and it's crazy because full circle, this was the owner finance deal, to preface this, and I'm getting paid out on it like they're paying me off this week.
Are you serious? Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So
So
from the time that that lead comes in, kind of tell us the story of the deal.
yeah, so I'm literally working out, like this old gym I went to. I'm like in the middle of workout, like deep in the workout. It's leg day. So I'm like in it.
So you're
And
looking for a reason to get off the leg press and on the phone.
not really, honestly. I was like, crap, I don't want to answer this dang call. But they call in, and so then I see like this is my first lead. I literally didn't even realize this was my first lead until you mentioned that. Because when I think back, I'm like, that's literally what it was. I remember who it was, whatever. But okay, so basically the lead came in. I couldn't talk at the moment, but I texted them immediately, like literally, because I know you want to get them like speed lead.
Right.
I texted him and said, hey, so and so, I saw you reached out about whatever. I know you want to sell quickly. So I'm in an appointment at the moment, but I can talk here in the next couple hours if that works for you. I said something on the lines of that. And they were like, yes. And I'm like, okay, I can do this time or this time. So I did the alternative choice. This
Right.
time, okay, great. I'll talk to you then. So as soon as I finished my workout, I went because it was freaking loud music, all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So and then yeah, I got on the phone, perfect presentation. That was like late that night, or I mean the triage, and then next morning was the perfect presentation. And I think I was pretty aggressive with that deal because that's the one I took over like an 8% interest rate sub to.
So give me the numbers on the deal ballpark, if you remember.
Yeah, so the yeah, 8% interest rate, great. So it was $160,000 mortgage. I gave the seller, and I was at like 8.5%. I
Gosh, yeah,
gave
that's awful.
Yes. But I gave the seller 20K to walk away.
Okay.
So I'm all in, 180 basically. Sold it for 235, and that was at 12.5% interest.
Interesting. Okay, so you still cash flowed on that 8% debt.
Yeah.
My goodness. Okay, cool. And so you bought it subject to the 160. So sub two is when this is a lower level deal structure. Sub two is where we leave a loan in place or leave a lien in place. We continue making payments on that loan. And then you gave 20K cash to the seller.
Mhm.
Do you remember your down payment on the 235?
The 235. This was a weird one, honestly, because again, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
Out in the boondocks, basically, and I wasn't getting a lot of interest. So I structured something with her where I let her get in with like no down payment. But I made her sign that I had equitable interest in her estate sale of uh, her grandpa or something that she was going to get in the next X amount of time. And then once
Okay.
it's done, then she's going to pay me. I just want to get a deal done, Brad. So I was like, I'm going to freaking make this happen. But it worked out. I mean, they literally, the estate sale, we're closing with the title company like this week. So,
Cool.
um,
All right. So you got an assignment of beneficial interest in that estate in lieu of the down
yes,
payment. And then you felt like, okay, when this closes out, I'm going to be paid off anyway, which extinguishes this 8.5% money.
correct.
Cool. All right. Fantastic. So how quickly, because owner finance is something that we do a lot of, not everybody really knows about. So do you remember how long it took you to find a buyer for the owner finance deal? Because sometimes in podunk areas, it can take a long time.
Mhm.
So do you remember how long it took you to put a buyer in place?
At the time, it felt like forever. Looking back, I think it was like a month.
Yeah. Okay. A month. That's pretty good. So put a buyer in place. They're paying you off. You're cash flowing in the meantime. Not a bad first deal.
Yeah, especially when you think about, I didn't think about this until now, the loan origination fee that you guys coach
Yep.
to wrap into the financed amount. That's an extra $7,000 I'm getting when she pays me off. I didn't even think about.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. And be sure and remember to get your escrow check on the underlying because that's your money too. So with your power of attorney, there's an escrow balance right now on that underlying mortgage, and it might be 2 or 3 grand. Okay. But that is your money.
Mhm.
So be sure and change the mailing address on the underlying, and then that money is sent to your P.O. box. And with your power of attorney, you can sign that check and deposit that amount. And those, for some reason, are just like my favorite checks. It's like we do a deal, we make X amount, and then like we get this little $2,000 check a month later, and we're like, oh, this is great, because it's you don't even think about it,
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, really, really, really cool. So would you do that deal today?
I don't think I would.
I don't think you would either. Isn't that so funny, man? Like that's growth, man. Like right there, because you started off, yeah, I'll do that deal for this amount, but then you get to the point where that deal is no longer worth it. And so
Mhm.
for me, the problem that I have doing the education side is that it's tough when you have like all kinds of different people from different backgrounds and different resources with different goals. So we don't have a homogenous group, meaning everybody starts at point A, everybody's going to point Z, and it's the same for everybody. Everybody has complexities and different backgrounds and different variables. And so with that, there are times, a lot of times on support calls, the question is, here's the numbers, would you do this deal? And the answer for me individually today sometimes is no, today I wouldn't do this deal. But when I was 23, and I did my first deal when I was 23, and I was like, who do I have to kill to get this deal? You know what I mean? So, the vantage point can be different, right? So that's really cool that you're already kind of seeing that. So I guess that was your first deal. And that was probably in April or May, something like that. Okay. How many deals have we done since then? And like kind of give us the numbers like equity position and cash flow, if you know it, just that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So since then, let me actually pull up to make sure I get the right number for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 closed, 3 pending right now.
Okay. So 15 closed, done. Another 3 pending. Fantastic. Now, usually my first month that we bought a million in equity was 17 deals. So how close are we to a million?
If I close all 3 of these deals that are pending right now, I'll be at a million.
Okay. All right, fantastic.
So either way, before it'll be before I see you.
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna.
know, I know, and so there's no doubt, Tydon, you're going to set the record for youngest seven-figure award winner. Uh, are you going to still going to be 24 at that point, or are you going to pass the quarter century mark?
I'll be 24.
Perfect. All right, so
But
under 25 years old. Um, dude, I mean, what would I have done if my second year at 24 in the business, I had done a million? I don't know. Like looking back, man, I mean, less than a year and both closed deals and purchase contracts right now set to close, a million equity. Like, does that even seem real to you? Like, most people here that don't know us are going to be like, "There's no way."
right. Man, the craziest thing is like, so one, the first answer to that question is like, no, it feels surreal, right? But I'm also like super, like have a lot of gratitude for it. It's
Sure.
amazing. But at the same time, I feel like I barely even started. Like, I feel like I haven't even tried that hard, which is weird. And mostly because I've just had so much more fulfillment than anything else. I haven't been able to just go out and buy because
Oh
I
yeah,
get inventory and I'm just focusing on fulfilling. So when I say I haven't tried that hard, like obviously I've tried, but like I haven't tried that hard to, really generate consistent motivated sellers and close them.
right.
I know what that looks like. I just haven't done it. So I'm like, to do this without even doing any of that is pretty insane.
Yeah. And it's funny, man. Everybody thinks the really tough thing in the business is buying the equity. Buying the equity is actually pretty darn easy. It's the fulfillment, the make readies to market that is the toughest part of the business in the event that the property needs work. And even in the best of markets 2021, um, it would take us far less sellers to buy a house than it would buyers to sell a house. you know, and because that's always going to remain the case, then you're always going to be overweight on fulfillment. So, in other words, I look at business as being there's only two problems in business. You either have a marketing problem, which means that you need, in this business, you need more purchase contracts. And once that problem is solved, then you have the fulfillment problem, which is how do I manage all of this? I've got purchase contracts, I've got sales contracts, I've got closings, I've got contractors, I've got make readies going on, and everything in the middle, right? And that's the overwhelming stuff. So
Mhm.
one of the things I'm pretty sure you told me that you've actually turned off your marketing at times. Is that correct?
Most of the year I've had it off, half the
Most
year.
most of the year you've had the buying machine off. So is it surprising to you, man, that we can go in and with our processes like buy the equity that we have?
I think it's really impressive. I think it's one of the best sales systems I've ever seen.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. But it took me a long time of doing the wrong things first. Yeah, I did a lot of
Yeah.
wrong things first. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about that I now remember is you've talked about the negotiation process and how that's really helped you. And I think it's overlooked how little wholesalers really understand the business. And you have your savages that you call them, that are out there like beating the streets, knocking doors or whatever, and creating this opportunity for you where you come in really as just like a really high paid consultant coming in and closing.
Yeah.
So kind of tell me about that, man. Like unpack that for us.
Yeah, well, I think it's exactly like what you said, high paid consultant. That's exactly kind of the frame I take and want to take and I do take when working with wholesalers because my goal and my whole thing is, hey, if I can just add value, add value, add value to these wholesalers who are usually a little bit younger and they're hustlers and they're getting out there and they're doing volume. Like if I can add value and teach them, when they
Mhm.
get a deal, they're gonna bring it to me first. Plus, it's a low-hanging fruit of the buyer. So that's been my approach, working with those wholesalers is, hey, how can I just literally help you? Like you don't know what the value is on this. How can I give you my opinion on the value? You got hey, under contract here. Is that a good enough deal? Like, Now you got to get it lower or you got to change the terms. So just being able to kind of consult them is exactly what it's been.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when you go and you deal with a seller, is that wholesaler going with you?
Uh, no.
Okay, so you're getting direct to seller and then just letting the wholesaler know kind of what's going on with it.
So it's either the wholesaler will get the contract, come to me for advice on how to negotiate it, how I would negotiate it, or they'll have a motivated seller, but they just don't really know what to do with the deal or how to negotiate it, and they'll connect me directly with them, and then I'll go and essentially take them through and close it.
Got it. Is it surprising to the people that you're working with what you're doing?
Yes, yeah, I
So
would say.
in what way?
Um, they're more so like a lot of these wholesalers are my age. And they're
Okay,
like, dude, how are you like buying all these houses? Like they're just like blown away. So it's been really cool. But yeah, they're pretty surprised about that.
cool. Yeah, well, maybe bring them to Mastermind. Guys, we're going to throw in the, if you have a question, then hit us in the chat with questions for Tide, and we'll go through that. And then we're going to be posting the link to apply with us. If you want this type of training, these types of systems, then you can apply to be with us. We don't accept everyone. We have limited availability. But if you're serious, we're looking for Navy SEALs, not baby SEALs. So if you're a Navy SEAL, then apply with us and we'll talk about what the future could look like for you. What would you say has been your favorite deal so far?
My favorite deal, see, here's the problem with that question is it's always the next one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like that's my favorite deal, it's the next one. But my favorite deal that I've done so far, probably the some now, some later deal I was telling you about last time we spoke,
Okay.
where
So,
it was like D, you want me to tell the deal?
yeah, yeah, please.
Okay, yeah. So it was basically the house is turnkey. It only had like one issue, which was there was like some minor foundation, but that's like normal around here. Um, but anyways, essentially we got the house at a discount. The ARV was 235. We bought it 140 with $10,000 at closing.
Okay, so hang on. It's worth 235. You bought it for 140, 10,000 at closing, and then what?
$1,500 a month in total.
$1,500 per month. And so what's the interest rate that you're paying on that 125,000 or 130,000?
Zero.
0%. So why is that helpful though?
Man, so essentially I have a $140,000 loan that she's giving me at 0%. And so I never want to pay that off because it's 0% money, right? I want to just pay the minimum amount every month.
Love that. And so we call this a some now, some later deal. We get a 0% interest loan from the seller. And guys, I've literally had sellers in the past that would say, now I don't want to do any of that owner finance stuff. And as long as you don't mention owner finance, they would take some of the cash at closing and some after closing, which is how we frame the some now, some later transaction. We negotiate all of this. We always negotiate price first because we're going to assume that we get a good enough price to just pay cash. Okay. But at the point that we see that maybe the price isn't good enough or we're feeling squirrely that day, as Tydon obviously was, because he could have paid 140K cash on a 235K house. But he said, hey, let's go for it. And it's a two-way door. You can always go to terms and then come back to price if you need to. If somebody says no to terms, you can still pay cash. You know, so
Mhm.
you switch from price to terms, and then you get the best of both worlds. So for us to have a good deal, guys, we have to have equity. Okay, equity is the difference in the value and the cost. So there's two types of equity. There's price equity. That's what everybody's trying to do is get a 70% minus repairs, minus wholesale fee type of deal. And there's a place for that. That's good. But the best deals that I've ever had in my career are actually not price equity deals. They're term equity deals, meaning that I'm getting 0% financing on a deal or there's some other X factor to the deal that creates the value. So in a situation like this, you've got a 235K house. You pay $10,000 up front for it, $1,500 per month. Okay. No interest. And then you put a tenant in there. They pay the $1,500 per month plus payment. What is the rental rate on this thing, by the way?
Normal rental would be like 1,600. We're actually doing a room rental on it, so we're grossing about 3,200.
Okay, cool. So let's just call it 3K. You got 3K coming in, 1,500 goes to the seller. Okay. So you literally buy the house for 10 grand, and then the payment, which is the additional cost, is paid by the tenant, you know? And it's so much faster than going out. What everybody wants to do, and I keep trying to talk Tydon out of it, is going and getting bank money. And then they're paying the 8.5%, signing on the dotted line for a loan, putting their cash in as a down payment, which is like not scalable at all with these types of number one sellers, but then processes once that lead is captured, we're able to take $10,000 and turn it into 100K equity literally day one. Okay. Plus cash flow, plus major appreciation in the house. And because the interest rate is 0%, that thing is paying off so quickly. So, I mean, that's less than 100 months, isn't it? Like, is it seven
Yeah,
years?
it was like 6.7 or something, like less than
So
7 years.
by the time Tydon is freaking 32, this thing is going to be paid off free and clear and have appreciated probably to 300 grand off of a $10,000 investment. So you guys see
Uh,
the power in that? Like that's just cool. That's
and
just cool.
one thing I forgot to mention about it is the one thing that wasn't good about the property. I actually got her to agree on an amendment that she was actually going to professionally fix the foundation to our standards before closing, and she did. So it was completely turnkey.
Wow.
Also, she replaced all the windows that weren't even old with brand new windows.
What a nice person
This
this
I
person.
know. She honestly was a super great person. One of the best sellers I've worked with.
Well,
She's cool.
yeah, I mean, good Lord, it doesn't get better than that. Um, just for fairness sake, what's been the worst deal that you've had, or the one that you just dislike the most?
Gonna put me on. It was the one I did. It's done now. It was a flip, long distance rehab. Did a long distance rehab in um, Lawton, Oklahoma.
Okay.
My original strategy was I was gonna owner finance it, but I had to get a lender to do the deal. And I knew the lender wanted to get cashed out a lot faster. So I was like, oh, well, I thought the numbers would work, with even if we went ahead and put some work into it, sold it. Basically, a wholesale was my goal.
Okay.
Is as soon as we close, two things happen. And this is why I don't plan doing long distance rehabs for a long time until I have a way more margin. Um, when we closed, the market just like went down a ton, like in that area specifically, like it was like a known thing. So they literally
Mm.
closed, market dropped significantly, and this was a $345,000 ARV house. So, above the median. Um, Property value goes down in that entire place. And then, like a week in, this giant outbuilding that was on the property actually broke, like split. And this was a decent condition property. This thing literally, the rafters split down the middle and collapsed the ceiling. So we had
Why?
to I don't know. We got a property inspection on it, and they were like, yeah, the only thing here was like it looks like the rafters are maybe like cut or something. And he's like that's a little bit concerning. And I was like, what do you mean cut? And he was like, oh, just someone kind of put them up weird or tried to cut them or something. But I was like, do you think it's not gonna like collapse or anything? He's like, oh no, it's not gonna collapse or anything. And then it freaking collapses.
Oh gosh. Yeah. That doesn't sound good.
So
So
it's not ideal, but it's like it's one of those things like if it was close to me, maybe I would have seen it, not done it. Like, you know.
wow. Yeah. That reminds me of one that I had in Knoxville one time. We closed and literally the next day, the so it was there's a lot of like rolling terrain in East Tennessee. And so this house, it had a basement because it from the street to the back of the lot, it was uphill. Okay. And so you had a good chunk of the garage that was, a block foundation, but it was below grade. And so that entire wall collapsed with like it almost looked like a mudslide the day after closing. And I'm like, I mean, there's no way I could have possibly known, number one, because I've never seen it. But secondly, it's like it looks perfect until it's not, and then it's just too late. So,
Yeah.
did you end up like losing money on that deal, or was it like kind of break even, or did you still profit?
So it's on the market right now, actually, all fixed up finally. It's probably going to make a little bit,
Okay,
but
cool.
as far as time investment, breaking
Yeah,
even.
just not worth it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. Sometimes, sometimes education is very, very expensive. That's what I try to keep people from doing. The best thing that I can do for people is to keep them out of bad deals
Hmm.
because the energy suck that a bad deal will give you is 10 times worse than like what a good deal will give you. And so, I really want people's first deals to be clean, easy, obvious. And so if you have to like go and spreadsheet it for 20 minutes, you don't have a deal. The best deals, you're on the phone and you're smiling because you're hearing the numbers. It's like it's obvious, right? But the farther away we are from home, doing remote rehabs, those kinds of things, I think that there is a place for that. But the farther away you are from home base, the cheaper that the house has to get for these kinds of variables. So it's good, man, that you're getting through it, you're learning some stuff, but you're also probably going to make a little bit of money, and it rides off into the sunset, never to be seen again.
Nice.
Um, cool. Guys, hit us in the chat with some questions. I think James is going to read off the questions that we have in the chat so far, and we'll switch gears for a moment.
All right. Before I do that, I got to mention something about Tydon. One of my fondest memories of Tydon. Well, let me preface this by something else. Most people that start off as investors, okay, they have a hard time with one thing, and that's just papering the deal, right? They want to over analyze everything. So Tydon was just the opposite. Tydon was ready to paper everything. But I remember a support call one time that I was doing, and he was going over a deal with me, and then all of a sudden Brad pops into the room. And Brad is very seldom does that, but he popped into the call and he goes, he just unmuted himself right away and says, "Todd, is that the same deal you just went over with me?" You
I
remember that?
remember that.
So, Todd was trying every which way to paper a deal. That's just a real funny story I remember. But here's a couple of questions they got here. Zach and Brian both kind of have similar questions. They want to know, what did you do to get started off with wholesalers? Do you use some kind of a program, a computer program to find these wholesalers? And then once you find them, how did you approach them? And what do you recommend that these apprentices do when they're in their areas and trying to hook up with wholesalers?
That's a freaking amazing question. Who asked that?
Zach and Ryan, both kind
Zach.
of the same question.
Dang. Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, basically, for me, I literally was like, okay, I'm getting into this business, and we buy houses. I'm starting to understand kind of the business model. So I'm like, well, let me just call everyone that does this business in my local area. So Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I live, we buy houses. Search, call all their numbers. Just be like, hey, I'm a local investor. I just get in the business. Wanting to connect with other people doing the same thing. I literally just called a bunch of people. And this is how I found the first wholesaler. So I just say the key is just talking to people because I got off the phone with one of these we buy houses people I called. And he answered and he was just kind of like rude a little bit, which was funny to me. But I guess I thought I was a wholesaler or something. But anyways, I just kept being nice through his rudeness. And he was like, I think he felt bad. But regardless, next day, he actually sends me a three-way text with him and a wholesaler who just brought him a deal. And it was like closer to where I'm located. And he was like, hey, I'm not interested, but talk to Tide and he might be interested. So this was a wholesaler that apparently had just been in the business for like a few months. And I got connected with him. I actually ended up buying that deal. That's one I'm refinancing right now. The project's almost done. Um, and from there, I just kept working with these wholesalers. So to answer your question on how I got connected, that was it. Just calling a lot of people and people connecting me with people. By also just searching wholesalers, Facebook groups, stuff like that. But calling people locally and then to communicate with the wholesaler after getting that deal, it was just being curious about like his business and how he operates and how he finds these deals and seeing where I could add value and like give context to what he was doing. And, mind you, I'm still pretty new too, but I could tell he was newer than me. So, I was just giving him just some context and just kind of ideas and I have some business background, so giving them ideas of how to generate leads more consistently, and it became just like a win-win. And him and his friend, and there's a few other wholesalers, a couple remote ones that just find deals in my area, and connecting with them and just adding value. Honestly, just trying to help them. Like I want them to make more money, and I think it comes back around.
Cool. Well, I have a question too, Tydon. Take me back to March of 23, right? When Tydon was only 23 years old. And I want you to give Tydon a piece of advice. So knowing what you know now, what you've learned, since March, what one piece of advice would you give to young Tydon just starting out in this journey?
It's funny. I feel like I always ask myself that question. Like, what advice would I be giving myself? Uh,
Hmm.
so to run that back, it'd be really what I've been telling myself for a while, which is one, like, well, really, it's one, aggressively live below your means. So like make as much money as possible and continue to um, live for as little as possible, because I feel like that creates more spread and positions you to be able to take risks, invest in programs, do different things that most people, they're slaves to their liabilities and to just stuff in life, and they can never do it. So that's advice I have given myself and I would give to my past self.
I got you. I got you. Well, Todd, I mean, nobody can take away from you what you've done, and I'm not surprised. I remember when you first came to the group. Me and Jen. I wish she was here. She would talk to me about it. But me and Jen always talk about different things, and we talked about you right away. I was like, man, did you see Todd? Did you see this guy Titan? And I knew coming out the gate that you was going to be successful, and I'm really glad that you are. And I look forward to seeing what you're going to do in the future too. But that's all the questions that I have in the chat right now. But I do have one more question for you, Todd. Let's talk about a struggle, all right, a real struggle that you faced in real estate investment. What's the biggest struggle you faced, and what did you do to overcome that?
It's a good question.
Yeah, good question. Um, Biggest struggle I faced. Not knowing where I was going to get the money from after I used all mine. was that would be the biggest struggle. I'm sure there's something deeper too, but the more like low-hanging fruit I think of is that, like, having the faith to go and buy these expensive deals that are still good deals, not knowing exactly where I'm gonna get the money from. Uh, and then just pushing to overcome that. It was just pushing through it and knowing that if the deal is good enough, that the money will find me.
I got you. All right, that's fair enough. So I got another question on here from Bernard. And what's up, BJ? Good to see you on this call. So he says, what is your main operating range on your PPC targeting? I think what he's talking about is the I guess your budget, and then what range of PPC targeting. I think he might mean the diameter, the radius of the area. So when you did your PPC, tell us about how you set that up, and what do you use for it? I guess that's what BJ wants to know.
Yeah, so BJ, I haven't really figured that out yet, to be honest.
How
Um,
far from your home? I guess what he really wants to know now. He's put it in there. So how far from your home did you set up your PPC campaign? That's what he wants to know.
like I said, I've had it turned off half the year, and I haven't really had the chance to really dive into, hey, what is the best way to actually target it for a local campaign? Like that's something that I personally need to, you know, dive into more now. But what I do know is what Brad says, which is going wide, you're going to get more, a lot more volume. If you go small, it's going to cost more, because it'll be more targeted. So that's what I know about it. But yeah, I need to get better on that side.
And hey, what I'm thinking, Tad, if you run PPC all year, we might be looking at twice these deals that you got closed. You know what I'm saying? Instead of
Would absolutely. I mean, it's not even a question.
yeah.
You
Just
know,
marketing in general. Like I should start marketing. Like,
that's funny. Well, I mean, again, buying the equity is the easy part, and everybody doesn't believe that until they do it, and then they're like, oh, like we've had homeschool moms come in, and in 90 days they've got like 6 or 7 deals papered recently, you know, and so it's just not that hard to find sellers when you're in a place that they're looking to find you. So I want to wrap this up because I'm notoriously long-winded on these, and I want to keep it to at the maximum on the hour. So what's next for you, man? I mean, knowing what you know now, looking back, you've done well. People like you and me, we don't really have like a, hey, let's pat ourselves on the back and like live off the interest kind of mentality. So what are you thinking about? Like what's on the horizon for you? What do you like? What's the vision?
Man, the vision. I just really want to set myself up to at least triple what I did this year, next year in real estate. Like that's really what I want to do next year. And I'm a very goal-driven person. So I have my like long-term visions I'm like always going toward. But man, that's just I want to build out a business that can really do this at scale without me being intricately involved
Yeah.
in everything that happens. Like I want to know, what does this business look like as close to automated as possible? How do I actually create that and do that and manage that high level like what you've done in your business and what I'm sure a lot of your scale members do? And that's what I want to do. And I want to do that in like a crazy short amount of time. And I believe I can because you've already done it.
Yeah.
So I want to be like literally create that business, get it running itself, take a step back, and then see, what's the next opportunity from there.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, man. I appreciate that. Uh, any final thoughts or anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't talked about?
Oh, really?
All right.
I appreciate you having me on the call. It's been fun.
This has been great, man. It's always good to hang with you, and I'm looking forward to February. So we're having our in-person mastermind end of February here in Watercolor, Florida. So it's about I don't know, maybe a 3-minute golf cart ride from my house. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll have the ocean, great restaurants, great people, work on our business for 3 days. I got Tim Berry coming in from Mexico, top level tax accountant. He just recently did a class action lawsuit on Charles Schwab on a $2 billion claim. So he's coming in and talking taxes. When Quest Trust and the equity trust IRA companies, the custodians, don't know how to answer a question, they go to Tim Berry. So he's going to be an amazing resource for us. In addition to some other great stuff, Coach Michael Burt coming in as well. So we're going to have a good time with it. So appreciate it very much, man. I'm going to hang out in the room for just a few more minutes, answering any questions that you guys might have in the chat. But again, Tydon, thanks. Thank you guys for being with us, James, the rest of the crew. And we will see you guys on the next Apprentice Spotlight, which will be after the holidays and the new year. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year from Investor Creator. Thank you guys. We'll catch you guys next time. Thanks again.